The cracks in the matrix, why everything falling apart means you're closer than ever. There's a moment on the spiritual path that's more terrifying than beautiful. It's not the moment of enlightenment, not the moment where everything makes sense, and certainly not the moment where you feel peace. No, it's the moment right before all that. It's the chaos, the confusion, the sense that everything you've built, your beliefs, your identity, your stability is crumbling beneath your feet. And it's in these moments when we usually think something is wrong. We think we failed. We think we're going backwards. But what if I told you that these very moments, the ones packed with fear, uncertainty, doubt, and emotional chaos, are actually the strangest and most reliable signs that you are on the edge of a massive spiritual breakthrough?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
Let's not sugarcoat this. Awakening is brutal before it's beautiful. It dismantles you. It strips you of everything false. And that process feels like death, because in a way it is. It's the death of the persona, the death of the mask, the death of the version of you that was built to survive but not to thrive. The first strange sign that you're nearing a spiritual breakthrough is that your world begins to glitch. You start to notice that the stories you've always believed about yourself, about others, about what's possible start to feel wrong. Not just intellectually, but somatically. Your body begins to reject environments, relationships, and routines that once felt safe. You might feel sick, anxious, or tired in places that used to feel normal. It's as if your soul is pulling you out of the matrix, but your mind hasn't caught up yet. And that's terrifying. Because what do you do when everything that used to work suddenly stops working? You surrender. That's the only answer. You stop trying to fix the old, and you start listening to the new. You start asking questions like, what if this breakdown isn't a problem, but a portal? What if the confusion is actually the space in which my real self is trying to be born? Because confusion is not the enemy. Confusion is the space between identities. It's the proof that you're no longer asleep, but not yet fully awake. And that's actually sacred. That's the cocoon. That's the void. And that space is where all miracles begin. I remember a time in my life when everything fell apart at once. Relationships ended. My career crumbled. My routines broke down. Every morning felt like waking up in a life that didn't fit anymore, as if I had outgrown my own skin. And I kept asking, why is this happening to me? But then something shifted. I stopped asking why and started asking what's trying to be born through me. And the moment I asked that question, the energy shifted. Because I was no longer resisting the death, I was making space for the rebirth. That's the real path of the spiritual warrior. Not to avoid the fall, but to fall with awareness. This is the paradox of awakening. The more your ego screams, the closer your soul is to stepping forward. So if right now you feel like you're unraveling, if nothing makes sense, if you feel like you're standing in the ashes of your old life, I want you to know, with every fiber of my being, you are closer than you've ever been. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. And the pain you're feeling is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of initiation. You are being prepared to step into a frequency that your old self could not hold. And in order to do that, everything false must burn. Here's the second strange sign. You begin to lose interest in what once fascinated you. The goals, the habits, even the passions that once lit you up suddenly lose their flavor. You might feel numb, directionless, or even bored with life. And again, this feels wrong. The world tells us that passion is our purpose, that we must always be striving towards something. So when the striving ends, we panic. But what if I told you that this numbness is not a problem, but a clearing? Your soul is making space. Space for new vision. Space for new alignment. Space for a higher timeline that hasn't revealed itself yet. The silence you fear is actually the space where your soul speaks loudest. This is where most people quit the path. They mistake the silence for a dead end. They go back to the familiar. They reattach to old identities. But you, if you're still here, you are different. You were not built to return to the old. You were built to walk through the void and emerge as something new. And that emergence doesn't happen through effort. It happens through allowing. Through surrender. Through radical, uncomfortable trust. So let me ask you something that might shift your entire perspective. What if your lack of motivation is not laziness, but divine redirection? What if your so-called stuckness is not failure, but preparation? What if the emptiness you feel is actually the womb of your next evolution? Sit with that. Let it penetrate. Because when you see the void not as a punishment, but as a portal, everything changes. You stop fighting yourself. You stop panicking. You begin to breathe again. And in that breath, your soul finally has space to move. The third strange sign, and this one is the most mystical of all, is that you start experiencing inexplicable synchronicities. You think of someone and they call. You see repeating numbers everywhere. You hear phrases that answer questions you didn't speak aloud. You feel like reality is winking at you. These signs are not coincidences. They are frequency confirmations. Your soul is aligning with a higher dimension, and the universe is reflecting it back. But here's the key. These signs usually show up after the breakdown, after the silence, after the surrender. They are the gentle whispers of a new timeline anchoring into place. They are your soul saying, keep going, you're almost there. But don't mistake these signs for magic tricks. They're not entertainment. They're communication. They're feedback from a responsive universe. And the more you pay attention, the more they intensify. The more you say yes to your soul, the more the whole cosmos begins to rearrange itself around your alignment. This is the real mystery of awakening. You realize that the universe was never separate from you. It is you. And every sign you see is not a message from out there. It's a reflection of the truth waking up in here. So if you're seeing the signs, if you're feeling the glitch, if your life is unraveling and your passions are fading and the silence is deafening, congratulations. You are not lost. You are on the edge. The edge of a breakthrough so massive, so life-altering, that your mind cannot comprehend it yet. But your soul knows, and that knowing is why you're still here. That knowing is what brought you to this moment. A moment of surrender, a moment of truth, a moment of becoming. The world around you may not see it. They may think you're off track. They may not understand your silence, your solitude, your inner fire. But they don't need to, because this journey is not about being understood. It's about understanding yourself. It's about choosing your soul over your story. It's about trusting the invisible more than the visible. And when you do that, when you commit to your truth, no matter the cost, everything shifts. Not all at once, but cell by cell, moment by moment, breath by breath. And so I ask you right here, right now, are you willing to let go of everything you thought you needed in order to become who you truly are? Because this is the threshold. This is the sacred edge. And the only thing standing between you and the breakthrough is the lie that you're not ready. The sacred collapse, why losing control, is the only way to find your true power. There is a moment in every spiritual awakening that feels like drowning in the unknown. It's not poetic, it's primal. It's the moment when your plans stop working, your certainty dissolves, and your sense of identity unravels so completely that you can no longer cling to anything solid. And while the ego screams for something to hold on to, the soul whispers a different message: let it all fall. This is the sacred collapse, and it's not a mistake. It is the exact moment your old self dies and your real power begins. We've been trained to believe that power comes from control, controlling outcomes, controlling perception, controlling our emotions. But in the realm of the soul, power comes from surrender. And surrender is not weakness. It is the most courageous, terrifying, and liberating act you will ever commit to. Because in that surrender, you finally step out of the illusion that you were ever in control in the first place. When you are on the edge of a huge spiritual breakthrough, life doesn't just get quiet. It gets loud with endings. Things collapse not because you failed, but because they were never truly aligned to begin with. Relationships fall away. Jobs evaporate. Passions dry up. The goals you used to chase suddenly feel meaningless, and it hurts. It feels like abandonment. It feels like loss. But what's actually dying is the version of you that was built to survive in a world that no longer exists. This is not destruction. This is cleansing. And in this collapse, you are not being punished, you are being stripped of everything that cannot come with you to the next level of your awakening. That's why the pain is so specific. It targets your attachments. It shakes the ground beneath your feet, because you cannot carry fear into freedom. You cannot carry illusion into truth. You cannot carry the false self into the light of your soul. And so, the universe applies pressure, not to crush you, but to awaken you. It's like being forged in fire. Every belief, every identity, every comfort zone is brought to the surface and tested. And this test isn't pass or fail. It's a refinement. It's a sacred invitation to choose your soul over your safety. But here's the paradox. the more you try to fix the collapse, the longer it lasts. Because it's not meant to be fixed. It's meant to be felt, fully, unapologetically, without needing to explain it, justify it, or rush your way out of it. The sacred collapse is not something you control. It's something you trust, and trust, in this context, means learning to stay open when everything in you wants to shut down. Let me ask you something that might sound simple, but if you really answer it, it will shatter you open. Who are you when everything you've used to define yourself is gone? Who are you when there's no audience, no achievement, no approval, no certainty? That's the real initiation, because that's when you meet the you that lives beneath the ego. The you that was never born and will never die. The you that is vast, formless, untouchable. And that version of you doesn't need to hustle for worth. It doesn't need to be understood. It simply is. And when you touch that place, when you stop resisting the collapse and let it baptize you, you begin to anchor into a frequency that is beyond time, beyond fear, beyond limitation. This is the strange power of spiritual breakdowns. They are not the end of your story. They are the end of the lie. The lie that said you had to earn your worth. The lie that said you had to be strong all the time. The lie that said your identity was your value. And when that lie dies, something miraculous begins to emerge: clarity. Not the clarity of knowing all the answers, but the clarity of knowing yourself. The clarity of finally seeing what's real without the filter of fear. And in that space, you no longer ask, how do I get out of this? Instead, you ask, what is this trying to show me? And that shift in perspective is everything. Because the moment you stop fighting the collapse, you start receiving its wisdom. You start to see that the breakdown was never random, that the people who left were never meant to stay, that the job that ended was draining your soul, that the loss you thought would kill you actually saved you. And this doesn't make the pain go away, but it gives it meaning. It gives it soul. And when pain has soul, it transforms. It becomes a portal. It becomes a teacher. It becomes a sacred companion on your journey back to yourself. And this is where your true power begins, not in perfection, not in control, but in presence, in being fully here, even when it hurts, in choosing truth, even when it costs you everything, in standing in the fire of your own transformation and saying, I trust this. That's the real power. The power to let go, the power to become new, the power to no longer need to be who you were yesterday. That is the spiritual breakthrough. It's not something you achieve, it's something you allow. And the more you allow it, the more your life begins to reflect your true frequency, not the one you perform, but the one you are. And here's the wild part. Once you surrender into the collapse, once you stop trying to hold up what is meant to fall, the universe starts to move with you, not against you. Synchronicities return. Energy flows. New people show up. Opportunities appear. Not because you chased them, but because you matched them. You become magnetic, not by striving, but by shedding. You become powerful, not by pushing, but by aligning. And this alignment is not something you think your way into. It's something you feel your way into. It's a full body, yes. It's a soul-level resonance. It's the quiet knowing that says, this is real. This is me. This is next. So if you're in the collapse, if you're watching your life fall apart and wondering what's left, let me tell you what's left. You. The real you. The you that's always been there, waiting beneath the noise. And this you is not fragile. This you is not confused. This you is not lost. This you is awakening. And the collapse is not your punishment, it's your permission. Permission to begin again. Permission to rise. Permission to step into a life that is not built on fear, but on truth. So I ask you one more question before we go deeper. What are you still holding on to that is keeping you from becoming who you were born to be? Is it an idea of who you should be? Is it a relationship that no longer aligns? Is it an identity that once kept you safe but now keeps you small? Whatever it is, let it fall. Let it crumble. Let it be taken. Because what's waiting on the other side of that surrender is not just healing, it's rebirth. It's the beginning of a life that reflects the truth of your soul, not the illusion of your fear. And you are ready, not because you feel ready, but because your soul brought you here. Because deep down, you already know the truth. The collapse isn't the end. It's the threshold. And your breakthrough is not coming, it's already here. All that's left is your yes. Becoming the new you, how to step fully into your soul's timeline and never go back. There is a sacred moment that comes after the storm has passed, after the collapse has done its work, after the silence has become your sanctuary instead of your enemy. It's not loud, not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with lightning or visions or angelic choirs. It arrives softly like breath, like light, like a memory you didn't know you still had. It's the moment you realize you're not the same person anymore. And not because you read the books or said the mantras or did the inner work checklist, but because something fundamental inside you has shifted. You no longer vibrate at the frequency of who you used to be. You've stepped into your soul's timeline. And from this moment forward, nothing can ever be the same. This is the culmination of the spiritual breakthrough, the becoming, the integration, the embodiment. And it is here, in this holy space, that you are finally invited to live as the truth you've remembered, and to no longer chase it, to no longer seek it, but to be it. But let's be clear, this becoming is not a reward. It's a responsibility. Because once you touch that level of soul truth, the universe will no longer let you pretend. You can't go back to the old job that misaligned with your heart. You can't stay in the relationship that asks you to dim your light. You can't lie to yourself for the sake of comfort. Because your nervous system now operates on a higher frequency. Your cells remember something eternal, and that remembrance becomes your compass. That is why so few people truly walk this path to its completion, because it requires the courage to leave behind not just the pain, but the familiarity of the pain. It requires becoming comfortable with the unknown, with the infinite, with the alignment that has no script, no map, no external validation. It's just you and the voice of your soul, moment by moment, step by step. So what does it actually mean to step into your soul's timeline? It means you stop operating from fear and start operating from resonance. You no longer make decisions based on should. You make them based on truth. You don't ask, will people approve? You ask, is this aligned? You don't shrink to fit into old roles. You expand into the fullness of your being, even when it costs you understanding. And it will cost you understanding. People will question you. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're selfish. They'll say you're lost. But what they're really saying is, I don't recognize you anymore because you're no longer playing by the rules of the false world we agreed to live in. And that's okay. They're not supposed to understand. Because this part of the journey is not about being understood, it's about being true. And truth walks alone at first. But here's the miracle. The more you walk in alignment, the more your reality begins to reconfigure itself around your new vibration. You meet people who speak your soul's language. You find opportunities that feel like divine assignments. You enter environments where your nervous system can finally relax. And none of it happens because you chased it. It happens because you became it. That's the secret. That's the code. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And the moment you fully become the new you, the timeline that matches that frequency reveals itself. Not in the future, but right now. This is the final integration. To live as the soul. To no longer compartmentalize your spirituality, but to infuse it into everything. Your work, your relationships, your art, your choices, your presence. You become a living transmission, a walking permission slip, a lighthouse in a foggy world, and you don't need to preach or teach or convince. Your energy says it all. People feel it. They don't know why, but they feel safer around you, more alive, more seen, because your presence becomes medicine, not because you're perfect, but because you're authentic. And authenticity is the purest frequency in the universe. It cuts through illusion like light through darkness. But here's where it gets real. Once you're in this space, you must protect your frequency like it's sacred. Because it is. You must become discerning, not fearful, but clear. You must choose environments wisely, speak words with intention, honor your intuition even when it contradicts logic. You must say no when your body contracts and yes when your soul expands. You must remember that your energy is not just yours, it's a conduit for something divine. And when you walk in this awareness, you become a guardian of your own light. You stop leaking your power to people who don't respect it. You stop explaining your soul to those who refuse to hear. You stop abandoning yourself for temporary comfort, because you finally understand that your alignment is not negotiable. It is your destiny. So let me ask you now, as someone who has touched the edge of transformation and is now stepping fully into the fire of embodiment, are you willing to let your new self lead? Even if it means letting go of everything that once defined you. Because that's the only way through. You cannot be reborn while clinging to your old identity. You cannot rise while anchoring yourself to the past. And the version of you that is trying to emerge, the one that breathes truth, walks in power, radiates peace, that version needs space. Space to unfold, space to express, space to be. And your job now is to give it that space, to create a life that honors your soul, not your ego, to build a reality that reflects your frequency, not your conditioning. This is the new chapter, and it won't always be easy. There will still be tests. There will still be shadows. But you will no longer fear them, because now you know they're not here to break you. They're here to refine you. And you are no longer afraid of being stripped. You've already survived the fire. You've already faced the void. You've already died 1,000 ego deaths to arrive here. And now you rise, not as someone who found the light, but as someone who remembers they are the light. And that light is what the world needs now more than ever. Not more noise, not more performance, but real, embodied, awakened human beings who carry the truth in every cell of their being. People who live their frequency boldly, who trust their inner authority deeply, who walk in grace and power without apology. That is you now, not in theory, not in potential, but in practice, in presence, in truth. So I leave you with this final reflection, one that only you can answer, and one that will determine everything from this point forward. If you never again had to pretend, perform, or prove, who would you wake up as tomorrow? Not who the world expects, not who your past demands, but who your soul is begging you to become. That answer is your compass. That answer is your freedom. That answer is the key to the timeline that has been waiting for you to say yes. And you are ready, not someday, not later, not when you feel more healed, but now, because the breakthrough already happened. The shift already occurred. You're not waiting anymore. You're becoming. This is your moment. This is your emergence. This is your soul, fully online, fully embodied, fully alive.